Well, welcome back, folks. Today's video is really the first of what will probably be a 2 or 3 part series. I don't know yet, I haven't shot the material, but what we're going to do is reinstall the top end on this little Suzuki TS50 Gaucho project. That being the cylinder, piston, rings, gaskets, and cylinder head. If you've been with me for a while, you may recall that I prepared the cylinder some months ago at this point. We're well into the fall or autumn season of 2022, and I had prepared and painted that cylinder probably back in May or June, so it's been sitting aside all this time. But the first thing I'm going to do, and that's what this first video is about, is preparing the cylinder head for the project. This head, if you've been with me for a while, you may recall is not the original. The original head that came off of this bike had a helicoil installed in the spark plug hole, and it hadn't been done properly. It was probably functional, but it wasn't done the way it should have been. And to use that head, I would have had to have removed the old insert and then redo it with probably a different type of insert. I probably wouldn't have used a helicoil. I would have used one of the other solid inserts that you can get on the market, which I actually keep in my inventory. And the first thing I did is I went looking for a good used head, and I found this one. The head is really in very good condition. The spark plug hole threads in particular are intact, which is most important to me. But to prepare this for installation on a bike, we need to clean it. And I mean, I could install it just as it sits here today, but you get a little better look at that. It's not very clean, so I have done a preliminary cleaning in my tank, my parts cleaning tank, just to get the worst of the oil and grease off of it and dirt, filth. But it needs further preparation to make it worthy of a restoration. So that's what this video is going to be, this first video is going to primarily be about. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift over to the workbench, and let's talk through this project, or this head rather, a little bit further, in what I'm thinking my approach will be to clean and prepare this before we go ahead and get into the actual work. Shift over to the workbench top here so I can give the viewers a little up close and personal view of the replacement or second cylinder head. I haven't really done anything to this outside of I soaked it in my parts tank overnight a couple of days ago just to get all the oil off of it, because it was pretty caked up with two-stroke engine oil. This spark plug is the one that came with it. May have mentioned that before. It's a Champion. Why anyone would put a Champion spark plug in a Japanese engine like this is absolutely beyond me. I've never used Champion in anything probably but equipment that they came in OEM originally, such as lawnmowers, lawn equipment, that kind of thing, industrial equipment, not in a Japanese motorcycle. So that will obviously be replaced. The rest of it again is pretty typical as you would expect. So my mission here is to restore this as best I can back to an original look. Now the original look would be something like this right here. That is, you can see the cylinder right here, or rather the fins. It's got a little bit of a bright look to it. The way I can, there's several ways I could go about this. The obvious way would be to media blast it with probably glass beads. And I would be inclined to do that, except for glass beads are going to leave the whole thing with a matte finish. If this was an engine case or even a carburetor body, that's recoverable from, because I can then polish it back and make it look something like this. The problem with this part is, given the design of it with these fins, I can't really get down in here easily to polish that back and seal the open pores that will occur when you use media like glass beads. So I'm going to try to avoid using glass beads. The other media option would be to use sodium bicarbonate, which is a little less aggressive. It's, industrial quality baking soda, basically. I do have a small pressure pot blaster. I could take it outside. It's a total waste system. Again, I think I've talked about that before. That has to be done outside. You have to have a nice day. We're getting well into the autumn season here now, so that the really nice days are becoming fewer and fewer as we go along. So I'd have to find a nice day to do that outside. You wouldn't want to use that inside. That's a potential option. It will still leave it a little bit of a matte finish. I think I'm going to try something different here. I think what I'm going to do is just to experiment. I like problem solving and I like experimenting, and I'm in no rush in terms of time with this. So I think what I'm going to do is use my ultrasonic cleaner, and I have never used the ultrasonic cleaner on a part like this. What reading I have done, there's kind of a mixed message on using ultrasonic cleaner with aluminum or alloy, and that is, if you're not careful, you can damage it by pitting the alloy. You would use more of an acidic type solution rather than an alkaline, because if you go too alkaline, even though that would clean, alkaline will clean the petroleum-based products like grease and oil out really well. It also will, in fact, discolor the aluminum. I know that for a fact. So I'd have to go to the acidic side on the scale. So I think I'm going to use a water white vinegar mix in my ultrasonic cleaner and heat it up first to get it good and hot before I put the part in, and watch it carefully, make sure I don't do any damage. However, I'm not going to experiment on this part, this part I bought on eBay. I'm going to experiment on the original, and this is the cylinder head that came with the bike. Again, I mentioned that it had a Healy coil. I think you can maybe just see it right there. I know you probably can't see it from your perspective, but the Healy coil wasn't done perfectly, to be honest about it. It's workable. It could be peeled out and I could use another insert, but I'm not going to bother. What I am going to do, and you can see I have cleaned this up a little bit. I think I used a Dremel on that way back when I first pulled it off to see what was going on in here. That's why this is so clean. I'm going to use this as my test piece, maybe a bit of a sacrificial piece. We'll see how this comes out. I'm going to first have to degrease it. It's a little bit oily down in here. I want to get all that out between the fins here before I go into the ultrasonic cleaner. You can see there's some oil right there. So I want to get all that cleaned out, and I will be experimenting with this, and depending on how that turns out, I will end up applying that technique to the ultimate part that will go on the engine. Another thought would be, instead of white vinegar is on the acidic side, of course, white vinegar and water, that would be distilled water, is a alloy safe wheel cleaner. You've heard me talk about that before for cleaning carburetor bodies. I don't have any right now. The only solution I have is what I use on carburetors, and I might resort to that, I don't know, or I'll just go down and pick up another container of wheel safe, or rather alloy safe, aluminum safe wheel cleaner. We'll see where I end up with that. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tank this in my parts tank, probably overnight or 24 hours, to get all the oil and grease off of it, dry it well, rinse it, and then we'll likely go into the ultrasonic cleaner and we'll see how that turns out. And I will bring you along for the ride at various steps so you can see how we're doing. A couple days later now, I've got everything set up, I think, for the ultrasonic cleaning. Again, remember, just to reiterate, I've never used this technique before to bring the luster back on an alloy or aluminum type part, such as these cylinder heads. In the tank is the liquid, 50% distilled water, 50% white vinegar. I have not done anything yet in terms of preheating or starting the system up. I've just got the liquid mixed, the solution mixed, and I've got all my parts ready to go. Before I put the first cylinder head in, which would be the original, and that would be this one, again, these are all been cleaned and degreased. This is the ultimate target of this activity, and this is the one I'd like to put on the bike. First thing I'm going to do is pre-warm this solution. Right now it's set to warm to 50 C, which is just over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The current temperature of the liquid in the tank is around 13 C, that's 56, 57 degrees Fahrenheit. I just brought these liquids, or these chemicals, that is the distilled water and the vinegar, in from outside. So they're a little bit on the cool side. So I'm going to pre-warm this and get it up to here around 45 to 50 C. That's the temperature that I'm going for. The timer right now is set at 5 minutes, so each cycle will run for approximately 5 minutes. I'm going to start with this other part first though. This is obviously a used side cover off a Kawasaki Triple. This is the cover that goes over the oil pump cavity, and I dug this out of my inventory. It's damaged. It's got a crack right here. That could be repaired with someone that was good with TIG welding, but that's not my concern right now. I'm going to view this as sacrificial at this point. I'm going to put this in a tank and use this to pre-warm the parts. Generally speaking, it's not wise to run your ultrasonic cleaners or tanks without something inside like a part. So I'm going to use this to start the warming process of the solution. Once everything comes up to temperature, then this part, this is the original head off the TS50, will go into the solution, and then we'll see how this turns out for cleaning. And depending on how this goes, then we'll end up with the final head, which would be this one. So again, this really isn't so much about cleaning, it's about trying to get some of the luster back to look and match the original OEM appearance. So I'm going to start this up off camera because this makes a very irritating noise on cameras, but I will start it up in a minute off camera and start the pre-warming, which will probably take a few cycles, and then I'm going to get on with the tank all heated up. I decided to go to 60 C, which is 140 or so degrees Fahrenheit, and you can see it's at about 60, at least according to the indicator here. It's flashing 60, and this is the setting set at 60 C. Let's check it with the little infrared and see what it's actually running at. Again, it should be pretty close to 60 C. And that records, I don't know if you can see that, 58.7 C Celsius, close enough for my purposes. So I think we've got the tank about where we want in terms of temperature. Here's the part. It's nice and hot, of course, because it's 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 C. It actually came out nice and clean. You can see that right there. So that part, now we're done with it. So what we're going to do now is put in the first or original cylinder head. Again, I'm going to put this in just as really the test piece before I move on to the real head that we want to work with. And I'm going to put this in and I'll cycle it and see how it comes out. It took quite a while to bring this tank up to this temperature. It's probably been, it's been at least an hour, maybe even a little bit more, an hour and 10-15 minutes to get the tank fully up to temperature. So now we're going to go ahead and put this original cylinder head in. It's reasonably clean, as you can see, a little debris in here. And we'll just tank it and see how this works out. Again, I've never done this before, so it might be a great success. It might be an utter flop, but we'll see. Probably going to take a while, and we'll catch up with this a little bit. It's been about an hour and a half actually, and I've run multiple cycles of this original part that came off the bike through the tank, and it's pretty hot. That's why I'm wearing these gloves. And I've repositioned it every 10 minutes, both this way and then rotated it. And I can generally tell you it cleaned it, but it didn't do a great job of, brightening it up much. You can still see in here, that's hot even through the gloves. You can still see evidence of staining, I guess I would call it. It did clean it pretty well, as you can see. But it didn't really do what I wanted it to do, to be honest with you, so I'm a little bit disappointed. The solution, as you can see in the tank, is quite dirty. I think you can probably see that, and that'll probably settle out a bit. But all in all, it didn't do as much as I was hoping it would. And as I said all along, this is really an experiment. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part, again, this is the original head that came on the project bike, and I'm going to end up, I think, blasting it with sodium bicarbonate, which is going to give it a little bit of a matte finish. And then I'll go back into the tank after that, and just for grins and giggles to see if that makes any difference. I think it's not going to be much of an improvement outside of giving it a nice flat matte finish. I think I'm still going to end up polishing this by hand, which is what I was trying to avoid. When I say polishing, I'm not going to try to make it look like chrome. I just want to get it back to more of an OEM look. And there's parts of it that look really good, like right in here and in here. But there's other sections, you can see in here and here, it looks kind of stained. This side looks really good, actually. So anyway, I'm going to have to do that a different day because it's pouring rain outside right now and it's cold and windy, and since I have to do the sodium bicarbonate outside, because it's a total loss system, I don't reclaim the media. I gotta wait for a nicer day, which will probably be a couple days. So we'll get back to this in a few days, and we'll take a look at what it looked like. This looks like after I blast it with sodium bicarbonate, and at that point I'll decide what I'm going to do with the original head. I think while the solution's hot, and it is good and hot, I'm going to go ahead and treat the process this replacement head just to clean it up. Degrease it a little bit since the solution's dirty and it's hot, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep running. I don't think it's going to damage it, and that was one of the things I was using this part for, is to make sure there was no damage, and there isn't. So I think I'll go ahead and process this now, and then later on, a few days down the road, we'll pick this video up and see where we're at. And here we have the finished cylinder heads, or at least finished as far as I'm going to go with them. To reiterate, the process I used originally attempted to use 50% water, 50% white vinegar in the ultrasonic cleaner. That really didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I took them outside and did a media blast with sodium bicarbonate. You saw a little clip of that. It's pretty straightforward to try to get a uniform matte finish. Then I put them back, each one of them individually, into the ultrasonic cleaner with heat, and I ran them through a total of probably of an hour, hour and 15 minutes each, and rotated each part because I didn't want to sit flat in the bottom of the tank. So I rotated it like this over that period of time, and then I rinsed them with clean water and let them dry, and here's what you see. Came out pretty good, I think. Again, this is the original. Maybe see the helicoil down in there. Not too bad. And then this one was really grungy. This was really dirty. If you recall the before pictures, this was it's full of dirt, baked on soil, a two-stroke oil, exhaust, grease, you name it. And I think that came out looking pretty good as well. Certainly good enough to use for this project. My point here was to attempt to get these cylinder heads back to, especially this one, back to a relatively OEM type appearance. I wasn't trying to polish them up, make them look like chrome. That wasn't the goal here at all. And I think I accomplished that. By the way, there's the bottom end of it right there. I think I accomplished that. I think it looks really good. So that's what worked for me, and I'm going to keep that in mind in the future as I go to clean raw aluminum cylinder and cylinder heads. Before we end the video, I'm going to switch over here a little bit, and I want to show you what the solution looks like that I used after it's been used to clean these cylinders. Again, these heads, I did them one at a time. There's the solution. Again, that's quite hot right now because I used heat. It's probably at I bet it's at 65, 70 C, something like that, so it's good and hot. too hot to put my hand in. You can see a little discoloration from the cleaning process on those heads. Again, 50-50 distilled water, white vinegar. Now I'm going to dispose of this. This is not going to be saved. Distilled water and white vinegar are very inexpensive, so I'm not going to keep this. I will drain the tank, flush it out really good with clean water, let the tank dry thoroughly for a couple of days, and then we'll go back on the shelf. But you can see a little discoloration in there right now. The other thing I wanted to show you is this is that Kawasaki triple side cover that I experimented with to try some different techniques. This, just for your reference, was media blasted with glass beads, not sodium bicarbonate, and it does give a duller, flatter finish than the sodium bicarbonate. That's why I didn't use glass beads on these parts. I wanted the parts not to be quite as dull looking when I put them in the ultrasonic cleaning tank. And that's going to be it for this video on attempting to restore these cylinder heads to a OEM type look. I think I accomplished that, or what I set out to do. The next video or two will be of the reassembly of the top end of the engine. That'd be the piston rings, cylinder head, that'd be this one, etc. So that'll be coming up here next week or two. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.